And if you're getting into this, and if you're just starting to get into this game, you want to play something that will show you the joy of what this game is all about.
How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of The Final Countdown, the show that lets you get to know your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh personalities a little bit better. And today we have Ivalice. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good. I'm doing good. She's a singer, a teacher, and of course a Yu-Gi-Oh player. Welcome to the show. It's really good to have you here. And of course, if you haven't checked out Eva on socials, the links will be in the description below as always. What are you up to these days?
Well, I was just at the YCS in Minneapolis last weekend, and these days I've been balancing music stuff and, as you mentioned, teaching stuff. I'm a public school teacher as well as playing Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's kind of like, during the week I do teaching and then a bit of stuff with music with my band, and then usually Saturdays are for Yu-Gi-Oh! And then
Saturdays are for
Sundays are for catching up on the schoolwork because I also am taking college courses. So
Do any of those worlds combine ever?
yeah, there have been a couple instances of this where there was one time where I was at a tournament and someone was like, "Do you sing in the band August Hotel?" I'm like, "Yes." And so like they knew me because they had like seen a show or something. And then in my teaching, it's actually come up a few times where a student has been interested in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's provided a point for us to work together or for us to be able to get their work done, come to some understanding. So, yeah.
That's really, really cool. So the first official question is, when did you start playing the game and how did you get into the game?
So I first was like, when I was a kid, I would watch the show. Mostly like I watched a bit of Duel Monsters. When I was a kid, I would watch Pokemon, and then my mom was like cool with me watching Pokemon, but she wasn't really cool with me watching Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'd watch Pokemon in the living room, and then I'd run downstairs to our like old ass TV in the basement, and I'd turn on Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it came right after Pokemon on like 4Kids or something.
Yeah.
And so I got interested in it from there, and I just got like random cards. I got my first like actual set of cards there of my own, with the um the structure deck with Caius the Shadow Monarch, with all like the DD stuff, and
Yeah.
um, so that was like my first cards, and then I uh around like the 5Ds era, I stole a bunch of packs of Duelist Pack 11 from a convenience store, basically like a Walmart, near my house to put together a Blackwing deck. Because I didn't have money for the cards, but I really loved Crow, so
There you
yeah.
go.
I've definitely given Konami their money back at this point, so it's
Absolutely.
um but yeah, so I didn't play for about a decade, and then one of my students got me back into it about a year and a half ago.
Oh wow, your student got you back into the game?
Yeah, so there was one day where a student of mine had some Yu-Gi-Oh cards that he brought. He had a couple of decks, and he's like, "Yo, Miss P," and like shows me his decks, and I was like, "Okay, not right now. Like we have schoolwork to do." And then had a little light bulb moment. I was like, "You know what? If you finish all your work by the end of the day tomorrow, like everything you do for your week, I'll actually play you. Like you bring these two decks tomorrow and we'll play." And he's like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I haven't played this in about a decade, but we'll do it." So so it's like the end of the day. He turns in all his work. I check over it. It's the best work he's ever turned in. Just he did great on it, and so I said okay. And so we played, Blue Eyes versus Dark Magician. Gave me the Blue Eyes deck. Um, Time ran out in the end of the at the end of the day. I was up on life points, so just
Easy dub.
easy dub. Just clapping one of my student. But
That's crazy.
so after that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I remember how fun this is, right? Um, and I just started watching videos from like Rata and Cali Effect and got into the competitive side and have been going to locals and stuff since like the summer, like late spring, early summer of 2021. So
That's really, really cool. I love the student story. That was so cool. So what was the first deck you ever played officially?
the first deck I ever like had was the structure deck with Caius, but the first deck I ever played at locals was Lunalight OTK.
Easy.
You know, just like the fusion build and stuff,
Yeah.
and I showed up and just did poorly. I didn't know how chain links worked. I didn't know how to Xseed summon. I just was fusion summoning and calling it a day. Um and yeah, it was so the first match I ever played was hysterically Lunalight versus Marincess, because someone who I
Ooh.
became good friends with after was on Marincess. And so that was like the first deck I really played against. So
Wow. That's crazy. And now you're playing Marincess as well today, right?
so Marincess was I played a lot of Marincess basically when the support came out. That was basically my deck for like basically up until I picked up Labyrinth. I was playing a lot of Marincess, occasionally like Tri Brigade or Melfi, but it was pretty much 90% of the time was on Marincess. So yeah.
Cool. Marincess is really, really cool and annoying to play against as well. You mentioned, yeah, and Labyrinth is no different. But we'll get to that later. You mentioned the YCS you just attended. A related question: what is your most memorable tournament experience?
Oh, I would say that it was from a locals, but this one was always just so memorable to me because it was the first locals I ever won. So I was at locals, and this was during the summer of 2021. And I was playing Virtual World. And I won a few matches, and I got to the finals, and I was playing against my friend who basically taught me how to play, more or less. Like I kind of taught myself a lot of things and watched a bunch of videos, but he kind of was the first person to sit with me and say, okay, here's how this works. So he was playing Tri Brigade, and we are in like a top deck war for the last game. He draws his last card, and he just smiles, extends his hand, and says, "You got it."
Aww.
And it was just such like a sweet moment. And then we opened up the OTS packs together after, and there was the Ulti Cyber Dragon in it,
Ooh.
which I still have, and it was the first time in the game where I was like, oh, I think I'm actually okay at this. Like I can actually win and do well. So it was really exciting.
So related to that, what is a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh accomplishment that you're proud of?
I would say that my accomplishments in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh are not that great. It's like local. It's basically just like winning locals and stuff. I guess I'm kind of
That's
more
big though.
known for like, I guess, yeah. um, I guess winning locals 2 weeks in a row with Marincess was one that I felt pretty good about, and I was playing kind of an interesting build of it where I was running offerings to the Doomed because I saw Sky Strikers players playing it, and I was like, I can run that in Marincess too, and so I kind of like I did that in the deck, and then it was featured on MCole40's channel, and that kind of
Ooh.
gave me a lot of momentum and stuff, more people following and being like, oh, she actually has some decent ideas. So
That's cool. That's great. I remember when I had Shiggy's on the show, she said that her greatest accomplishment was attending a YCS, which is like just attending the YCS in and of itself is like not a lot of people get to do. So
right.
that's really cool as well. So you mentioned offering to the Doomed. What is another weird card that you recently searched for one of your decks?
Oh, weird card.
Like surprising tech, spice, stuff like that.
Playing magical, was it Magic Deflector in Labyrinth?
Oh,
Is a
that's
very
it's
funny
an
one.
insane card against Runic, right?
Yes, yes. So that card is because like with Lady of the Labyrinth, you can search it basically. So that card is hilarious against Runic. Um, and basically just like um a bunch of small like tech trap cards. I will just sit and go through every trap card, like every normal trap in the game, and just be like, which cards can be run, which cards are funny. Like, um, oh gosh, there's one that I was running a White Howling in Marincess as a Mystic Mine out.
What does that do?
So you banish a spell in your opponent's graveyard, and then so if you control a water monster, banish a spell in your opponent's graveyard and negate the effects of spells on your opponent's field for the rest of the turn.
Spicy tech. Spicy tech
Spicy, right?
indeed.
It was
That's really cool.
it was pretty fun. It came up a couple of times. Strangely enough, like I was playing locals and um a Sword Soul player had a really spell heavy hand with like Vessel, Mine, Heavenly Dragon Circle, and so that card was like just GG, which was strange against Sword Soul, but
Yeah.
you take those, right?
We take those. Definitely take those. So the next question: what was the last card you sleeved?
The last card I sleeved was Deck Devastation Virus.
Ooh. Okay, that makes sense. Labyrinth, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, so that's in my side deck for Labyrinth. Usually it goes in against like Exosister or Sprite, of course. Yeah, I love the virus cards honestly. So Eradicator and Deck Dev are two of my favorites. Um,
They're
so
really good.
yeah, I love those cards because they're not floodgates, but they're so disruptive and they're so um there aren't really good ways to play around them. So it's one thing to just like flip goes in and say GG and move on, but
That's true.
it's just more funny to do the virus cards. You get to see
Yeah.
your opponent's
Look at the
hand.
hand. Next three
Oh,
draws. It's insane.
oh, gotta
So
love 'em.
powerful. So I saw on your stream that you recently played Master Duel, and I'm sure you probably play DB as well. What is your current default deck on Dueling Book?
So Labyrinth is definitely my current default on like Dueling Book, Edo Pro, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just I've been playing that deck for basically since it came out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one that I love playing it. It's so fun to play, and you get a little tired sometimes when you're not running a deck that really has hand traps and stuff, but at my core I really love Resolve in purple cards sometimes, or pink cards depending on how you look at them.
Of course it's pink. It's magenta. Let's say it's
Yeah,
just
magenta. Yeah,
We'll
that's
take
true.
that.
Yeah, so I love playing with that deck though, so.
Cool. Awesome. So back to some Yu-Gi-Oh products. What is your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh booster pack or other product of all time?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say, I would say Rise of the Duelist is probably one of my favorites, introducing the Dogmatica cards, the Tri-Brigades, and also the Melfi's. Definitely, Rise of the Duelist is definitely one of my favorites. Probably, the one that I've had the most, like, there are certain sets where, like, they could say Legendary Duels from the Deep because there was Marincess support, or Tactical Masters because it was Labyrinth. But I always find myself diving back into the Rise of the Duelist cards, for whether it's like a deck or particular cards like Forbidden Droplet. I really adore that set. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a good set. I think it was the Power of the Elements of 2021 or 2020, whenever it was released, but it was like a meta-defining set with a lot of really, really good cards.
Right, and the last two sets have been incredible. I mean, Power of the Elements and Darkwing Blast are just I mean, they're excellent sets. I mean, compared to when I first started playing competitively, the first set that I was like in an OTS for was Ancient Guardians. So
Yep.
it's like,
Yep. Rough.
so I think that was like Odadic, Sulfachord, and Ursarctic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like
Rough. Did not
really
age well at all.
no, like the only like none of them are playable, and Ogdotic is kind of cool, but other than that, like you're not gonna catch me out here playing Ursarctic or Sulfachord.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So we just kind of recently had a ban list. We're going into a format that is very scary. Shizu cards are almost here. We got Sprite at full power, Telements at full power. So a few ban list questions for today. If you had the power to ban one card, what would it be?
I had the power to ban one card. Well, my card before the ban list was Red Reboot.
There you
I
go,
would
problem
say,
solved.
yeah, yeah. I would say now the card would. I would say maybe Sprite Elf. Honestly, Sprite Elf is it's a really
That
cool
makes
card,
sense.
but it is just so powerful. It's so generically used in so many decks. You know, it's tier limit support, it's sprite support. I think that card is pretty busted and can be very annoying to deal with.
Yeah.
That so that one would be a big one on the list. And as people have been main decking this more and more lately, I'm getting real tired of getting hit with evenly matched. Let me tell
I
you.
thought you were gonna say that.
I'm so sick of evenly matched. Like, oh my god, you gotta have your spell and trap negates off, or you gotta have your judgment, and unless you're, you know, I'm like putting Lancia in my side deck because I'm sick of it. Like,
Ooh, I
like
mean,
it's you know,
it's very good.
yeah. I mean, it's not the Lancia is not the worst side deck card in the world because you know it hits Bestials and such,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm seeing it everywhere, and I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if you can play Chaos Hunter in some way in Labyrinth. It's a
You
Dark Fiend,
can.
right?
Yeah, so
Ooh.
yes, you can actually. So you can I mean you can just like have 3 copies of it. You can also send it to the graveyard off of either Fiend Griefing or um um Archfiend Glitch, and then special summon it back from the grave um with your Labyrinth Field spell,
Yeah,
or special summon it with your Servant's effects to special summon from hand.
yeah, it's pretty good. So, second balance question. You had the power to take one card out of the Forbidden List. What would that be?
I would say my answer usually is Orcust Harp Horror, but specifically for this meta, uh, Tellarknight Ptolemaeus.
Ooh, interesting.
So,
Why is that?
for being able to rank up into the Constellar Diamond,
Yeah.
the because that card is just so ridiculous against tier elements, because any card sent from the deck to the grave is just banished. So
yeah, that's
so
very good.
that card would be so nice against tier. Like, oh, I would love to see that card. I would love to see Ptolemaeus back so you can go and rank into it. But yeah, I think it would be really interesting for this format because we are going to be seeing some heavy tier representation, and that card, unless they have
Definitely.
Dark Ruler or something, really solves that problem. So
Yeah, for sure. Last balance question. If you had to limit one card.
let's not limit one card. Oh man.
So let's
I
say
would
Elf and
say-
Evenly are already banned. They're already banned.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe Havness. Tier Element's Havness is a very frustrating card, because you just have to watch for your effect activations,
Yeah.
constantly with that card on the field or that card in your opponent's hand. Yeah, it's a very frustrating card to deal with, and you want to play try to play around it, but it's very difficult to play around it. And then you just have to know that if your opponent's on a 40 card deck, that there's a 33% chance that they have Havness. So you gamble. You're having to gamble because they're on the gamble deck, you know?
Yeah, that's true. You sometimes have to like dive right into the board and like, all right, Havness me. Let's roll that dice.
Right. It's like if your opponent has Nib, you know that your opponent, if they have it in the side, they have a 33% chance to draw it. Sometimes you just gotta roll with it.
I will bet that we're gonna see Elf and Havness get hit within the next 6 months, I would say. Elf, since this card released, I've been saying this is a ban-worthy card. This has to go.
Yeah.
Havness, they might hit the deck like in general, but Elf is busted. And as time goes on, I'm like, all this. I played Sprite for a little bit, and then I was like, every Sprite card is better in tier limits. Why do we even bother? It's kind of
yeah, a little bit. I'd say I was at the YCS in my first round. I got paired against a YCS winner, Kobe Short, and in our game he sided into Cyberstein, milled Cyberstein, special summoned it back with Elf, and then made an Eteria Exterio.
Yep.
And I was just like, what do I do? Yeah, that was pretty much it.
That's nuts. All right. Very, very cool. So, if you were a Yu-Gi-Oh card, what type and attribute would you be?
A type and attribute. If you catch me on a good day, probably water, a water attribute, like probably just like Marincess card, a water Cybers monster.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it depends on the mood. If you catch me on a good day, it's water Cybers. On a rough day, it might be Dark Fiend.
Fiend.
I love Fiend cards. Like the Lady of Lament cards are some of my favorites too. And so I'm not, I'm not very tricky. I'm not very filled with machinations. I'm possessed of goodwill. But sometimes it's just
on the
a
good
bad
days.
day.
On the good days.
Some days you just don't want to catch, me,
We should revise that question. What is your type and attribute on a good day and a bad day? That would be hilarious. Next question. What is your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card you currently own?
Man. I would say it's probably my copy of Blackwing. Well, I have multiple copies of it, but Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind. So after I stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh, more than a decade ago, I still had this Blackwing deck, and I kept it in this like playing card deck because I never had deck boxes, I never had sleeves, and I kept this little playing card thing wherever I went, and so I've moved, multiple times. I've moved like 4 times at this point from when I first had those cards, and it always came with me. And then when I started getting like into Edison and stuff, I used those cards that I had and built a Blackwing Edison deck. And so the Blackwing Gale the Whirlwinds the one, because Edison, that I use in that deck is the same one that I used when I was 15 years old. When I didn't really know anybody else who played Yu-Gi-Oh, and so I would just play against myself. So I would just sit and make, I would basically just, it's like that one Pixar short, Jerry's Game, where it's the guy playing chess against himself.
Yeah.
And that was basically me when I was younger, when I was a teenager, because nobody really played, and I was kind of alone with it. So Gale the Whirlwind is just kind of a card that's very near and dear to my heart, and I really love that I still have those from when I was a teen.
Wow, it's a really, really cool answer, and really cool card as well. So you mentioned you were at the YCS. There's a lot of selling, trading going on. What was the last card you got rid of?
Last card I got rid of. I don't think I got rid of any cards when I was at the YCS. A friend of mine was like, I need the Scareclaw engine for my friend, and I brought it with, and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
we actually don't need it anymore. Um, so I think the last cards. Well, I'm going to be going to locals after this, and one of my friends wants to play the fish deck, and so I'm just gonna give him Pace's something of the
Ooh,
fish or
yeah, the
goatee,
goatee. Yeah.
the goatee. So yeah, so I'm just gonna give those. I'm just gonna give those to him. So
Cool. Who is your favorite or few favorite Yu-Gi-Oh personality or personalities?
my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh
So it's
personalities.
the shout out corner.
Yeah. So previous guests on the show, I love Shiggy's. Shiggy's,
Shout out Shiggies.
I just absolutely adore Shiggy's. Fifth rate duelist, Zara Khan. Uh, just such a wonderful, kind person, a brilliant mind for playing the game. Just absolutely adore her as well. Um, Logan from Crush Cards, and also Brian, of course. Um, also previous guests on the show. Um, but big fans of them. Um, in terms of others, I really like Trishula, young Trishula, the Dragon Link guy,
Yeah.
um, who is just so passionate about that deck. I love seeing people who just have such beautiful passion for the game. And so seeing people like Trisha, like my friend Sperato, who is an armed dragon guy, my friend the Archfiend guy, who is huge into Archfiends, I love seeing that sort of passion from people. So that's when I think the game's at its best, when you see somebody who just absolutely loves playing for the sake of playing.
Yeah, that's true. All about the people at the end of the day. Coming up to the end, last question for today. What would be your advice to somebody starting to play the game today in 2022?
Oh gosh. I would say if you want to start playing competitively and stuff, first find a deck that feels like an extension of your personality in some way. Something that you're not just playing because it's the best deck in the room. If you want to be the best competitive player out there, you absolutely can, and I'm not saying like don't play Tearlament or something. But if it's not your playstyle, don't force yourself to play that if it's not something that's necessarily fun for you. And if you're getting into this, and if you're just starting to get into this game, you want to play something that will show you the joy of what this game is all about. So I was playing decks when I first started playing competitively that weren't great. I was playing Lunalight OTK, I was playing Unchained. It took a while until I started playing Virtual World. But I liked those decks' playstyles. I liked their aesthetics. I liked the idea of it. So try to find a deck that feels like you, and try to find a locals that is going to be a good fit for you. And try to make a friend there or get a friend to go with you. Because I know for me, there have been times where I've gone to locals or to a tournament and I've been by myself, and as someone who doesn't always fit the usual bill of people who play Yu-Gi-Oh, it's sometimes hard because it can feel like you're the only voice in the room or that you're alone. And that's frequently been something for other people who may not have continued to go to locals and things like that because of bad experiences or bad interactions with other players. So making friends is huge in this, and being unafraid to stand up for yourself. It isn't always the easiest thing to do, but if somebody's slow playing you, call a judge. If somebody isn't treating you right, don't don't allow them um to be able to, I guess, lord over you because of a card game. Life is so much more than this game, and while it's fun and something that I love, it should never be something that diminishes your personhood.
Yeah, I totally agree 100%. I also, regarding what you said about playing a deck that kind of fits you as well and not only your playstyle, I remember I played Despia since it came out, and I really, really felt very, very connected personally to the deck for some reason. I don't even know why. And Power of the Elements comes out. I pick up Sprites. I pick up Runics before anybody even knew what Runics were. And I was playing the best deck, but I actually felt like really crappy and really pressured to play a strategy that was obviously top tier, but didn't really fit me, I suppose. And after selling those decks, I was like, I woke up in the morning, I was like, I'm selling those decks. Sold them.
Yeah.
2 hours later, not in a hard sell at all. And I felt this weight come off my shoulders going back to playing Despia, like physically. And I 100% agree with that. I totally agree. Find a deck that fits you for sure. So that was the last question. It's been a really an awesome pleasure talking to you. And let the people back home know where they can find you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this. This has been a lot of fun, and I've loved getting to talk about this. So if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter as @EVA_LEES. You can also find me at the same on Twitch. I usually stream mostly on Thursdays, sometimes on Tuesdays. And yeah, and if you happen to live in Chicago and you're going around to locals, you'll probably see me. So if we don't know each other, come and say hi. I promise I don't bite, and if we're cool, you found a friend in me too. So
awesome. Thank you so much. And of course, all the links will be down in the description below. Go check them out. Thank you so much again, Eva. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a thumbs up on the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you are new. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.